So, welcome everyone. I'm Danielle Harrell, one of the co-founders of the Somatica Institute.
And I'm Celeste Hirschman, the other co-founder. And we created the Somatica method because we really felt like there was something missing in the field around experiential and interpersonal method to help people really practice the tools of emotional and erotic intimacy. And then we had so many clients coming into our practice that we felt like, okay, well, clearly there's a bigger need for this. And that's why we created the Somatica Institute, so that we could train other coaches in the method and spread it, all over, first all over California and then all over the country and now all over the world. So we're really excited about that. And we're excited to have a panel here today too.
Yeah. So today we invited three wonderful Somatica practitioners, I can say certified Somatica practitioners, to join us and share a little bit about their experience having this wonderful career. I think it's wonderful. They will tell you what they think about it. What does it feel like, and how life looks like when you're a sex and relationship coach? So we have Christina.
Hi, am I on?
Yes, you are. And we have,
Hi, it's nice to be here.
wonderful. And we have Dimitri.
Hello, everyone.
And we have Pamela.
Hi, nice to be here.
This is Pamela.
So first we want to hear a little bit about what brought each of you to Somatica.
Yeah, so I actually started as a client. So I was a client of Danielle's, and I was struggling with desire discrepancy in my marriage. So I definitely didn't come to coaching because I've always felt like I had a handle on sex. I actually started with a client as a client, and just every time I went into session with Danielle, I was blown away by the things I was learning, about my body and about sexuality. And one day, I think I was talking with her. I'm like, why doesn't everyone know this stuff? She's like, well, we train coaches. So that was how I initially got into it.
Well, I had a number of friends who were coaches and who had done the training and found it so valuable. One of them retook it 3 times. So that was a pretty incredible testimonial. And it made me interested. And it's funny, when I found out about it and I read about it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this one day. And it was starting in a week. And I looked at the schedule of the meetings, and I had one of these insane schedules at that time, and I could do every single meeting. And I decided that was a sign from God. Little did I know, it was really exactly where I needed to be.
Thank you. Thank you, Dimitri.
Hi. So I met Celeste and Danielle, I think it's been 11 years now, it might be 10. And at the time the business had just started. It was about 2 or 3 years old. It was a baby. And I kind of just knew that this work is what I needed to be doing. And I very easily convinced them that they need a male practitioner working with women just as they were working with men. And it was a pretty easy sell, and here we are many years later.
Yeah. So, we really want to hear a little bit about how Somatica impacted you personally. We talk a lot about how Somatica is actually first and foremost something that we do our own journey with and then bring it to our clients. So we really want to hear about how it impacted you personally.
For me, I was coming out of a really intense time in my life where I had really lost myself, and I threw all of my energies into some other people's vision, and it collapsed. And I mean, my confidence was just drained. And I had been a coach much earlier. I mean, before people really knew what a coach was, I had been a personal growth, and particularly around spiritual practice. But then I moved into other areas of business, and it didn't go so well. So when I was coming to Somatica, I was pretty frazzled. And it was almost stealthy the way the training ended up putting me back together again by focusing on less pressure and more pleasure, which it seems so simple, lessening the pressure and giving me an opportunity to feel more pleasure, and having people cheerlead me in that process, lots and lots of people, really, it really helped me recover from the shame of being a human who makes really big mistakes. And it gave me it gave me a really impactful experience of something that I think is profound. And that was that in focusing on my pleasure or focusing on sexuality, you heal way more than just your sex life. You know, when you're with a caring practitioner who really wants to know what you like, who really wants you to explore what feels good without shame, and who's celebrating it the whole time, like what you love matters. It heals. It's just extremely healing.
I like that you asked like how it affects us personally, because I think that journey is true. Like it affected me personally first, and then professionally second. But there was this kind of nice intersecting moment. So obviously, like I wasn't super connected to my sexuality. That's what was showing up in my marriage, and so like my personal journey with a somatica coach, I think really helped me just like realize, oh my gosh, there's this huge part of myself, this like sexual part of myself that has been like dark for so many years. And to be able to have that part of me, I love what Christina was saying about this access to pleasure. And I literally have like my salad with sesame dressing, and I'm like enjoying the smell of it so much right now. And I think somatica just helped me get in touch with all these pleasures. And then when I started the training, I would say like that. So I was one of those people who took it 3 years actually. And the first year I do think was more like, okay, I had this one coach, but now I was practicing it with groups of people. And I like leaned into that more, that personal growth. But I also started to discover, I was like going through this thing at work. So I was in tech, I worked for Apple and I worked for Facebook, and I was like really good at my job. I was like, I'm good at my job. And in my head, I think I had always equated good with enjoyment. Like I'm enjoying my job because I'm good at it and it's working, right? And I remember I actually had a meeting with someone from HR at Facebook where I was at the time that I was taking that first year of training. And she's like, why don't you make a list of all the things you're good at doing and all the things you enjoy doing? And it was this powerful moment because I was actually like heading into training that weekend with somatica. And I think it was like our second weekend or something. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm good at this and I enjoy it. Like, and it kind of like shifted in that moment from not just like a personal growth journey, but like, wait, could I also do this professionally? And it would be like personal growth, but it was just like, yeah, mind blown. So yeah. So both, yeah, personal connection to sexuality and pleasure, but also like pleasure in a career, which was cool.
Thank you. I love that. More pleasure, more joy.
I know, it gave me goosebumps.
3 really quick things that somatica personally, how it personally affected me. I think one of the earliest things that we learn in the training is the gift of boundaries and how important they are. I was able to like quickly put some practical boundaries in place in both healthy and unhealthy relationships that led to much lower resentment and much better relationships across the board. I think taking the training and being a practitioner has really helped me with my relationship with rejection. I think I take rejection very personal, and it's like crushing. I can't even watch simple sitcoms sometimes when people get rejected because it brings so much anxiety. And I think in this work, you have to learn that there's a lot of things that aren't about yourself, and you show up as that person, as the practitioner, and it has greatly relieved me of a lot of anxiety around feeling rejected. And lastly, I mean, this work has improved my ability, my personal ability to have a much better sex life. I understand my sexuality a lot more. I'm able to communicate with my partners so much better, and I'm like I understand what I want, and I understand how to ask for the other person's needs. I'm a coach, so I'm able to really help determine the other person's arousal, because the other person's arousal is very important to my arousal. So yeah, I mean, it's been massively transformative for me. Thank you.
Awesome. So I think people also want to know a lot about like what it's been like, your journey of starting a practice as a sex and relationship coach, and how you've grown your practice and how that feels. So maybe if you could share a little bit of that part of your your journey, the growing your practice?
When people take the training and they come to me and ask like, oh, I don't know how to begin, just set up a website, and just like that seems so overwhelming. The best model that worked for me is I started very slow. I started with one client, sought a lot of outside help, saw two, saw three, built my practice as I felt like I was masterful with just one client or just two or three. And it's easy to stay one or two sessions ahead and stay masterful with one or two or three. And I still to this day rely on it now entirely on either Somatica referrals or word of mouth because I've been doing it for 10 years. And there's a lot of people that have worked with me that refer me to friends and family. And there's some families that I've worked with almost everyone in over across 2 generations. And there's some couples that I've worked with that have many of their friends and their couple friends have I've worked with.
Yeah, I can piggyback off of that. I had a similar, this was, I kind of slowly grew. I, started with just a couple clients, actually in the middle of training, because there was a set of people who had similar experiences to me that I felt really comfortable working with to start. Like Dimitri said, I could feel like I was a few steps ahead of them, and that's all I needed to be at the time. And then, as my skills improved, and as my, sharing with the world what I was doing, naturally more and more people know about you and what you're doing. And I got more training. I eventually landed on couples being something I really, really enjoyed working with. And so, as I got more skilled there, I really shifted the majority of my practice to that. I saw a question come up about in person or online. I think, obviously COVID has shifted all of that. So all my work was pretty much in person with a few online clients here and there as I grew my practice, and it's currently 100% online. So yeah, it took time doing other training and getting supervision, like Dimitri said, as I grew the practice was really good. And now it's just, it's a full-time gig for me and has been for about 5 years now.
I feel like my experience might speak more to the people who are listening, because I just came into the whole system pretty recently, just a couple of years ago. And so there's this network of support in place, not just, I literally have gotten support from the people you see on the screen right now that has been absolutely invaluable in starting my practice. So I feel like I'm sort of sitting on all of the work that the 4 of you have done. And when I started my practice, I dove in, and I made the space in my life for it. I knew that there'd be a certain level of investment where I wouldn't be able to support myself. And I also knew from my personality, I have to learn by doing, which means I have to learn by making a lot of mistakes, which just slaughters my self-confidence. So I got a ton of supervision, a ton of support, and did a whole lot of self-care as I grew and learned on the job. But I mean, how cool is it to have a job where you get paid to train? So that was one thing. And the other thing that I think is really important to know about the training is that because the training's so big now and it's so well respected, it attracts a ton of mental health professionals who come in and do the training too, who you'll get to practice with. So some of my most valuable client relationships came from people referring me who I had met in the training, who had gotten a chance to work with me and see the way I work and see the way I am, and refer people who they thought would be a good client for me, which was great because I had no idea who my ideal client was. And so that was really helpful. And even, Pamela did a business training right after the beginning of the core training that helped me so much, giving me the inspiration, well, not even the inspiration, more the confidence to reach out to other practitioners like doctors, gynecologists, other psychiatrists, oh my God, hairdressers, like who do you talk about sex with, right? And I might have thought of that myself, but I certainly wouldn't have had the self-confidence. And that that became just incredibly useful in my practice, and also helped me train in just how to talk about what I was doing. So it really helped me on the whole explaining to a potential client on the phone what I do, because I was busy slowly explaining to the various professionals that I knew in my life, and then I would reach out to people I didn't know when I got a little more confidence.
I think that's a great point. I just wanted to piggyback off of, like, I kind of forgot about that, right? It's been a little while since I was in that growth stage. And, yeah, maybe I was only seeing a couple clients a week, but I was spending like a good chunk of my week actually like kind of working on my practice, whether that meant like cold calling some life coach in the community, having coffee with them, or like, reaching out to doctors or taking more trainings or something like that. So I was, investing a lot in the practice, even though I wasn't having so many clients in the beginning, and that was really helpful.
Good. And we want to answer people's questions in a minute. But before that, I just want to ask you all what you love most about being a Somatica practitioner. So you can share what's your joy or your biggest joys in it. Pamela Joy.
There's a whole lot. I mean, probably the most important thing is witnessing clients' transformations. It's amazing. I like to say sometimes now and then I have like grandkids, clients who get in relationship and get married and have children, and I joke, and some client said that actually the first time, like, oh, you're gonna have grandkids, so that's really sweet. And I just the level of transformation that some people are capable of and come in wanting, especially around their sex lives, is wonderful. And I mean, I've worked with hundreds of people now, so dozens of them have had massive kind of like life altering transformations, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely the most wonderful part of this work.
I think my answer goes back to that conversation I was having with that woman in HR when I was back in tech, is like, this is just fun. I was like, when you asked the question, I was laughing because I was remembering my last session where literally just the last hour, right, where I was playing around with a couple, and like there was some embarrassment on the part of one of them to like smack the other's ass, and like, so we were just like playing with that online, right? And like how fun is that? Like, it's just so much fun. And of course, sometimes there's like these really tender moments, or these really like wow, transformative moments. And like I had a girlfriend who was staying with me for a little bit. She was evacuated from the fires, and she could kind of hear muffled sounds through my door, right? I got headphones on and everything. And she comes into the kitchen. So she's a therapist too. And she comes into the kitchen after we're having, lunch, and she goes, "You laugh so much in your sessions." And, she is just like marveling that, her work is so much quieter and like more subdued, and also really important. But I just think that's the fun part of this. Like, I'm also trained as a therapist. And so, I can compare and contrast the two worlds. And I just think this is fun. Plus, flexible schedule, and, everyone needs this. So there's big market, and, but yeah, fun. It's fun.
Amen. I will third that. It's fun. It's so much fun to get paid for talking about sex and relationships. Like I wouldn't already be doing that, And I just love that. But it was something a little more, maybe deeper, exposing myself a bit, is that because in the early days of coaching and the training, and also I was a spiritual teacher. So there was a lot of projection about expertise onto me that I never wore very well. I was always uncomfortable in the role of expert, and it drove all kinds of, way too much education and way too much trying to prove myself and all of that. And what's amazing about the Somatica method is that that's not even useful here. Like, what has been so healing for me is that I get to be my geeky, overexcited self about sex and relationships. I just get to be me, and then that's useful for people. And then I have reflected back to me something as simple as just being able to talk about the details of a couple's sex life feels like it releases anxiety for them. And it feels to me like, yeah, tell me more. I mean, I'm just being me, and so not efforting, so not trying to be the expert. I mean, yeah, I have some great tools. I had some great teachers, but I just get to be there, and that's valuable for them. It heals something in me that's it's subtle, but it's very, very meaningful.
Yeah, I'm just like, I do want to say, like, it's so amazing for me to sit with you guys here. And, like, Dimitri, you are the first generation of Somatica students and coaches, and Pamela, you're just like, just a little bit after, and we are taking so much of what we, like, learned from you and implementing it on this coming training. So I do want to say something amazing for me. I know I'm not supposed to talk here, but I can't help it. Like, the connections that I have with Somatica is my family. The connections I have with people in Somatica, the connections that I see people in Somatica having with each other is mind blowing. So yeah.
Roger has two questions. One for Dimitri. How do you think being male-bodied has affected your coaching in the beginning?
In the beginning of Somatica is the same as the middle and the same as now. I think it's a little bit more rewarding for people who are either triggered or attracted to male bodies. I think the work it's slower to get clients, and probably the clients that I do eventually hold on to feel to me very loyal and very set in. It makes the work very, very slow at the beginning, and it's a really good thing. I think people who are ultimately going to want to work with people who have like a very masculine presence might be a little bit more cautious. They might want to choose a female practitioner, and a lot of those people who really strongly want to choose a female practitioner will. Everyone here has been talking about networks and the Somatica family, and I think there's so many female practitioners that know when the time is right for someone to see a male practitioner, and that person, sometimes is me.
Yeah, a lot of times if I'm working with a heterosexual woman, I'll work with her on a lot of her like empowerment and self-esteem, and then I'll be like, okay, now go see if you can practice that with a male practitioner. So we send clients so that they can have some of that practice in a safe environment, but a little less safe in the sense of now they're dealing with someone who they might have more attraction and transference with. So that's another way that male practitioners get referrals. And the other question is, do you feel that you have been very beneficial to those who have experienced sexual trauma?
Because of the phenomenon that I just mentioned, where I would work with people who are like sometimes more attracted to male bodies or masculinity, or just, men, those people tend to have a significant amount of trauma. I worked with very few individual females or women in part of couples that have not had at least some level of trauma, and sometimes quite massive levels of trauma. So it's a very common occurrence, as you can imagine, that comes up when you're working in the realm of sexuality. And because I tend to see more of those, I've had a little bit more training outside that deals with like the specifics of trauma and working with it. So it is a common thing. I think people who are ready to do this work come to us, and when that trauma comes up, it can be a separate or integrated part of their work. And sometimes if it's significant, it's really easy. We've developed great relationship therapists in our community, and we've shared clients. I've had therapists as clients. I've had therapists who send people to me that they're working with, and I send clients to them if the trauma is significant enough to where it's impeding our coaching work.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't necessarily focus on trauma hugely in the training, other than making sure to identify when it exists and bring the person back to the moment. And it was funny though, that in grad school, I took a course in trauma and like all the stages of dealing with trauma. And I was like, wait, I already do all of these with my clients, so yeah, I think trauma is always showing up with clients, and sometimes just sharing their story and having it heard, and normalized is a way to have a lot of that be less impactful for them. And then, yeah, sometimes I'll refer out if it's like we're doing like just full on trauma work. And I like doing some of the more fun aspects. I always tell, like, if I'm referring out to therapists, I was like, okay, so you get them to neutral, and then I'll have all this fun stuff because the therapists are like, I don't know what to do there. So I kind of enjoy that. So if it's showing up in kind of that middle realm, yeah, absolutely, I'm dealing with it in session. And if it gets too much into that work, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, you go over with this person and then come back to me and we'll have some fun.
I have a similar experience. I see trauma everywhere, but almost always the people who come, by the time they're coming to see me, they've either had some trauma work or they're in a place in their healing where they're ready to engage in pleasure. A couple of times I have referred out because people didn't even realize that trauma was affecting them, and it didn't show up until we were doing exercises. It's something that I feel like I am an amateur in the study of. I spend a lot of time trying to stay up to date, but I don't feel confident really bringing trauma into the scope of my practice, because I never even thought to say it that way, Pamela, but yeah, I like the fun stuff.
Where do you practice? I'm currently working in a collective healing center, and I feel like I'll need a more intimate space once I'm doing this work. I want my clients to feel safe to open up. However, I'm not sure I'm comfy working at home. So a couple people want to say.
I love working from home. It's amazing. I've worked from home since the beginning. It's nice to have a separate space, or when I didn't really have a separate space, I would spend time to transform it at the beginning of my day into my workspace and then untransform it at the end of the day back to personal space. But I really love that. So yeah, work from home.
I love working in an office setup. I feel really supported by it. And I also feel like it somehow de-shamifies the work as completely legitimate healing work. If I make noise, I love talking about the other therapists in my hall about what I do, because I think it's just extraordinarily valuable. And so for me, the professional building sort of setup supports me.
Yeah, Danielle and I have mostly worked out of our homes, but occasionally have rented offices for, just reasons of needing more space to do the work. So this next question, I'll answer first more generically, and then if anybody wants to chime in on it. I was curious to know if any or all of you have worked with or have been anyone previously in the sex trade. I'm an ex-prostitute who was pimped out, and I was curious to know if you feel as though this work is exactly what is needed, or does it hit too close to home, or is it a simple level of trauma recovery that is the main factor? I think the really big difference between this work and being a sex worker is that as a sex worker, your job is to kind of like give the other person what they want. And your work in Somatica is to be authentically mutually vulnerable about what you want and what they want, and to have that to be a negotiation with boundaries. And so I think it can be actually very healing if in some ways sex work to you felt like, wow, I'm just giving and giving and giving, and nobody's really paying attention to my needs, or it doesn't feel like it's equal. There can be some burnout there. And with Somatica, I'm also teaching people how to give me pleasure and what feels good to me, and saying, like, you're touching this part of my body too quickly. It's not arousing to me when you do that. So that would, so that can be very healing. And there have been many people who've taken the training who've done different kinds of sex work, and maybe they wanted to still do that, or some of them wanted to transition out. And they have said that it's been, very healing experience to show up much more as themselves in the experience, and to have their real authentic boundaries and needs be part of the process.
I will answer, people ask like practical questions, so I'll let our wonderful panel breathe for a second while I answer this. Like, how long is the training? We're offering now in October, beginning like October 16, a training that is 7 modules once a month, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, from 8:30 a.m. to 2:15 p.m. California time. And we have people from all over the world taking the training. It's international. It's awesome because you get to see people from different cultures, as well as different places, like in the US, and microcultures. It is also we were able to really translate the tools to that we used to do with touch. You do a lot more talking, but we definitely translated all the tools, and you get the full curriculum that we offer during the Zoom training as well.
And if there's a tool that requires touch, we demonstrate it, and then you can also practice it at home. So how do you describe what you do, the interactive part? That's a good question. I like it. Anyone want to take that?
To be honest, I don't describe it too much. Like if I'm just doing like an intake call from someone, and they're trying to figure out if this is going to be a good fit, I'll listen to what their goals are for coaching, and I'll say, yeah, like if you go to a talk therapist, you're going to do primarily talking. They're going to give you homework, but here we're kind of doing homework in session. I always let them know you're keeping your clothes on, so I will say that. But then I say, you know, the goal of it is for you to feel the way that you want to feel and to achieve your goals. And I feel good about coaching and experiential to be able to do that. So I don't describe it too much. I find if I go into the description of it, they get lost. They don't understand it. So
I also want to say that we have, Pamela, can I share your first question to me when we started to work together? Pamela
yeah,
said,
go ahead.
and she was like, hey, how experiential this work is. And the answer was, it is experiential as you want it to be. And I think if I would not say it, I would never meet Pamela, who and we would not be in an amazing relationship these days. So yeah, it is really, people have different perception of what experiential means. And what I love about Somatica is that you really match it to where your clients are and what they need, and you like move along as they're ready to move along.
And I like, because the way you described it there, you said it's experiential as you want it to be. The way that I remember it was actually, you told me, we won't do anything you don't want to do. And that was like super relieving to me. Yeah.
Good. How quickly were you able to make working for yourself full time?
I'll answer in 5 seconds. About a year and a half, maybe closer to 2 years. Like full time feels like a nebulous thing, but yeah, somewhere in between a year and a half and 2 years. And sometimes I wish that was even slower. But yeah.
It took me about 6 to 8 months to be able to pay all my bills, and it took me a year to be full time.
Do you need to have a degree higher than a bachelor's degree to be a sex coach? You don't have to even have a bachelor's degree to be a sex coach. It's a totally separate, it's not an academic pathway, it's a career pathway. So you're learning all of the tools and you get the certification through the Somatica Institute. What are some of the lessons you've learned in getting started building your practice?
That get help, get support, put that in your business plan. That's where the best money is spent.
Get comfortable talking about what you do everywhere, like parties with friends. Like if people don't know what you do, no one's going to know what you do.
Yeah, I second Pam's, and like there was an earlier question about like how comfortable or how do you feel talking about the experiential part. I think I kind of almost now these days enjoy confronting people with the experiential part of the work, because a lot of those people who are severely confronted become clients, because like I gently point out that like, oh, it seemed really uncomfortable with this kind of stuff. Like, let's talk to me about that. That seemed like really, like off-putting for you. And I've even gotten one licensed therapist to be like, oh my God, I realize I need to do this work. And I wish we had more therapists who are more comfortable talking about sex and sexuality, but we don't. And that's why Somatica exists and is thriving.
People ask about the age of the coaches. Do you have any younger therapists on staff? I'm 21. Yeah, we are having younger and younger. I think I just spoke with someone yesterday about it, and they were 27, and I said like, yeah, like we have people 21, 22, 23, about like 1/10, about 13 or 14 people in this upcoming training are under 20. And this work, like the earlier people have access to this work, their life have, like it's like return on investment. The sooner you start, the more you can get a better life. for the longer time. So we are welcoming younger coaches because we really want this to be accessible for everyone. And because Somatica is so relational, people are looking for people that they can relate to. So that's wonderful.
Do you feel this training can work for queer couples also? I'm a non-binary person and want to work mostly within the queer community. Lots of nods. Anyone want to say anything about that?
Yeah, but at least 40% of the couples I work with are queer. Now, what is interesting is I mostly get lesbian or transmasculine women or non-conforming. I don't get many gay men couples. I haven't had any gay men couples. That probably has to do with my community more than anything. But yeah, absolutely, this is good for queers.
Yeah, Dimitri, I think, works with gay men.
Yeah. I mean, I'm right in the Castro, and so I've had gay male couples. Queer male couples, or queer couples where one of them is male. I mean, I don't know about 40%, but a decent number of people, and yeah.
And trans and non-binary too. You've worked with a lot of trans and non-binary folks.
Yeah, a lot of trans males. Yeah.
So Pamela, I think this next question is for you. Do you recommend going to grad school for this job?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think why you're asking that is I actually did grad school in parallel with my 3 years. I did 3 years of grad school and 3 years of Somatica at the same time. And I always joke, I'm like, I thought grad school, I'm going to go get clinical skills there and I'm going to learn about sex and Somatica. And like, that just wasn't true. Like I learned all of my clinical skills from Somatica. I think what I got out of grad school was the ability to understand the law around how therapists work, the ability to understand how to work with anxiety, depression, substance abuse, things like that, trauma. And so like, yeah, if you're like, hey, I want to work with those things, grad school could be great because that's additional. But if you're wanting to work with people around emotional or physical intimacy, you get everything you need from Somatica, which is the more fun part.
And back to square one, more fun part. Yeah.
What tools do you all use to continue your own learning as you evolve in your practice? I think a lot of people are asking, like, what other education do you think we should get? Or do we need additional education?
Just follow your interests. Like if there's things you're interested in learning about, go learn about those things. Every now and then something pops up that's interesting for me and I go learn about it. And then I'm just diving back into my practice. It usually shows up like something shows up in my practice or my personal life. But Somatica gives you everything you need to have the practice.
Yeah, we get a lot of people who are just doing Somatica. Oh, sorry, Dimitri, did you want to say something? That are just taking Somatica, but also, Danielle and I, in creating the method, we took a lot of other trainings. I think it's wonderful. I mean, we offer, the core training, we offer a training on character, sort of understanding people's wounds. We offer a couples training. So we have, multiple trainings that you can take. And I think we're working now on hopefully offering what we're calling a trauma empowerment training, because I think that's what we really work with around trauma, is how to help people who have had a trauma history feel empowered in their sexual and emotional lives. And so we're going to continue to add trainings in the Somatic Institute, but it's wonderful to take additional trainings outside, definitely gave me additional therapeutic skills.
And also there was a question about supervision. We definitely offer supervision. And I think everyone on this panel was in supervision with us at some point or another. And, if we have ongoing groups of supervision for practitioners kind of in the same level of experience. And also once in a while I get a call like, I have a problem with a client. Can you help me? I need a 15-minute consult. Sure. Always. Yes.
Just to reiterate, you don't need a particular degree to come into the training, because there was another question about that. So how do you create boundaries between teaching without becoming too sexual or perverse insinuations? I think they're kind of trying to understand how do you play around sexuality without going beyond boundaries?
It's important that your eroticism show up in session, and then it's also really important that for me it's important that the physical boundaries of Somatica exist, because you need some level of boundary at some point with in just your personal life and in this professional life. So the Somatica boundaries exist. One could call them arbitrary, but they exist to have some level of shielding and protection. And if you rely on those, or your own boundaries in the moment that you're not ready for something, or that the relationship that you're having with the client isn't ready for something, that maybe they're really ready to go and want to touch and want to play and everything, and they haven't, but you need to coach them into the place where you would be ready to engage with them in that way. So yeah, I think it's incredibly important that both the Somatica boundaries and your boundaries exist, and that you're aware of them, so that you can have a much better relationship, and you can coach them into a relationship that they can have out in the world that is inherently going to be boundaried, especially at the beginning of like a dating or a transforming of their sexuality with their current partner.
Great. A lot of these questions are stuff that Danielle and I can answer, but I'm trying to pick out the few that, that folks on the panel can answer. What is the typical range of client billing rates for a newly certified Somatica coach? Does there tend to be a different billing rate for online versus face-to-face coaching? I don't know if any of you all want to say.
And also, if you want to say something about your like what's going on for you during COVID, because I think people have this insecurity around whether they're going to lose clients, like you lost clients, or if you want to share about that. Yeah.
So I've definitely ramped up my rate over time. I think it would depend on the area, how much that market can support in terms of the rate. So I started like low, like $100 kind of thing. And my rate is north of $300 now for a 75-minute session. So yeah. And then, is it different for couples or individuals or online or not? No, I have one rate because it's my time, and my time is the same value no matter who's buying that. I do have two sliding scale slots though. And then, COVID was hard for me because I see couples primarily with young kids. And so suddenly they're all working from home with the kids all around. And so my practice did take a little bit of a dive when COVID started. As it's gone on, they've all realized, wow, we still really need help in that arena. And so they're figuring it out. They're figuring out how to do it. So my practice is back to where probably like 90% of where it was before COVID. So yeah.
And in terms of rates, do you charge differently for in-person or online?
No, same rate.
Supervision. Have you hired Danielle and Celeste for supervision?
Yeah, I think I answered that.
Oh, sorry. And Dimitri also. People do supervision with Dimitri now because he's been with us the longest. Okay, so maybe we can answer some of these. I think people answered, how do people acquire clients at the beginning of their careers? So there's referrals, word of mouth, talking at parties about what you do all the time, talking about what you do all the time to everyone who you talk to, including your dentist. And, you'd be surprised who needs help or who can tell people about it. And then also we do refer clients to people. So we list people on the website if they're certified. And we do encourage people to start seeing clients after the first round of training, and then to come back and do the second round, as an advanced student or the supervision track. Somebody asked that. So you can start seeing clients and then you come back through for the certification process. And having some client experience really helps you with certification, because then you can kind of ask questions. Oh, I have this going on with this client. Can I get some help with that? Or when you go through the training again, you can get experience with exercises that would really help the clients that you're working with. But to get certified, it does require a second time through, and that is at a lower cost, and you get additional time with Danielle and myself.
And people ask, would it be exactly the same? And I'm kind of really curious because, both you, Pamela, and Christina retook the training as advanced students, and I would love to hear, and I think it would be very helpful for people to hear, that does it feel the same when you do it the second time?
Oh my God. I remember spending most of the time going, Danielle, did we learn this last year? Celeste, seriously, you covered this? No, I was completely in self-growth mode the first year. And I would think it was about the third day that I talked to one of my practice partners and said, okay, I'm not going to do anything professional this year. This is just for me. And then I came back with the intention the next year of learning to be a practitioner.
Yeah, I think I had something similar. I think what was going on in my head as I was in the sessions the first year was like, oh my gosh, that's like me, or oh my gosh, that's my partner, or oh my gosh. And it was like all a personal revelation. And then because I was starting to have clients in the second year, the kind of dialogue in my head was like, oh, that's that client, or, oh, that's what's going on with that client. And so it was just kind of like in the first year, I just had myself to apply it to in my own relationships. And then in the second year, because I was starting to see clients, it was just like, on the job learning in a way. So cool, but very different. And I even took it a third year, I'll add, which was just to take it all in again. And I think it was like a group leader that year. And I also took all the additional trainings too, which offer something entirely unique on top of the core.
What advice would you give someone looking to jump into the sexual relationship coaching space? What considerations, if any, do you wish you had considered when looking for a training program to join?
I didn't look at other programs, but I will say that your method of like explaining a topic and then doing a demo and then having the triadic model where we all get to like practice in groups, like observing and being a client practitioner. Like when I went to grad school, I think I had one class like that. And it was probably one of the few classes I felt like I walked away with some clinical skills. So if I was looking at programs, I would want to make sure it's not just like online modules where I'm just like learning content. Like there's got to be this demo, like you learn so much by watching an actual session, you learn so much by practicing actual sessions. And so, certainly that didn't exist in my grad program. And a lot of the online programs I've seen are just more content, like sex educator programs versus clinical programs like this one. Like, I love that you guys are like certified by the California Board of Behavioral, like you guys give continuing education units to therapists. Like that to me is like a really good, like I would check for that. Like, are they certified? Yeah.
Here's a quick one. Is the program suitable for students as well? My concern would be if I have a university lecture to attend, I wouldn't be able to join a Somatica meeting. It is possible to miss 2 of the days of the online training. So if you need to miss a little bit, that's okay. We've definitely had people take the training concurrent with other trainings. So yeah, it's totally possible to do. And we have ways to make up days if you miss additional days than that. Somebody else says, on the other end of that, do you have the older people coming to the training? I'm headed towards 50 and hearing that there are many under and around 20-year-olds, making me wonder if we'll have much in common during the learning process. Yes, people are people, but stage of life and era you're born in can influence perceptions and sexuality. I would say that the middle range of folks is between like 30 and 60 in terms of people coming to the training. That's like the top part of the curve. And then we do have people, into their 70s and from their 20s coming in. But yeah, there's a total range. And the bulk is between people between the ages of 30 and 60.
And I think it's super amazing to learn from different, people in different ages, because we got exposed to sexuality in different ways. So I find it super fascinating.
So what challenges in your practice have you had? Here's another question.
I've had all kinds of challenges. Some of the most challenging things in my practice are when, when the work is good, sometimes you hit people's stuff and it hits your stuff. There was one particular challenge when that happened for me, that it was just consuming an enormous amount of my emotional energy. And that was really challenging for me. And that's when I realized that I couldn't do this alone and I needed a lot of help. And also what that did help me to do is realize that I get to have a scope of practice. There are certain types of, I don't know if you can hear that. It's really loud outside right now. There are certain types of clients and issues people are dealing with that I am learning I don't need to be, I'm not good at being available for, or it's too much on me personally to be available for. So there was a very emotionally exhausting time in the beginning there where I was figuring out what I can handle really well and what I can't handle really well.
Are the times set in time? I live in New Zealand and 8 a.m. is 4 a.m. here. I know we have some brave souls in the training this year doing it from Australia, and they like mostly stay awake. Sometimes I have to call them and wake them up. But it's one weekend per month. So if you can do it, you just have to change your sleep schedule a little bit for that one weekend a month, and then you would be able to join. But yeah, we wish we could make it possible for everyone in every continent to be able to do it at a reasonable time. But unfortunately, the globe doesn't work that way. So some folks have to do the late nights. I'm wondering if there's a way for any people in the same geographical area to possibly pod up to practice together during COVID. I'm concerned about this new online structure and not having the elements that in-person interaction creates. So definitely, if you have people locally to you, either who are taking the training with you, and sometimes there are people in your area who have taken previous trainings, and we would be able to get in touch with them as well. Maybe they would want to practice with you. And also for the practice sessions, you can practice with friends who you already have like your COVID bubble with, or partners, and it can be really fun to bring it home to your partnership as well if you have a partner.
There's a question on how can I, as a disabled person, navigate through the world of sex coaching. So I feel like we have in our trainings a few people who have disabilities, and there are, we are doing whatever we can to meet their needs. I think they have sight differences, right? Yeah,
that's the main disability that we've had with taking the training so far. I don't think we've had a lot of people with, sort of obvious visible disabilities, although people have different disabilities who may have taken the training that are not visible. But yeah, we have two people one person who's blind and one person who has sight. I forget what she calls it, but it's just
sight
like
differences,
minimized sight. But I feel like it would be really wonderful for people to, do this work and bring it more to disabled community. I've definitely had some disabled clients, and it's been really amazing to work with them. I have a wonderful client who has RA, and he's grown so much in the work together. So there's a lot of different possibilities there, I think, for this work.
Yeah, I agree. Where I've really found this happening is my online practice. In my online practice, there's been a much broader range of physical abilities that are able to show up. And because of, I think it could be incredibly powerful to have people with disabilities as coaches working in whatever format facilitates it.
There's a question about like how to manage a practice in a small town because everyone knows everyone. I think it just gives you more visibility, honestly. Like, we need to in big cities, you need to like do more work to get to know people, but you can like sit in the grocery store. I remember at the beginning of our practice, I was sitting with my daughter in the playground, and like people will come to me and start asking me questions, and people are so interested to know more about sex, and they want to know so much more, and they will like scoot over and talk to you. I think it's just a benefit. And, with Zoom and the ability to practice outside of your small town, you have the whole world in your hands. So that's another option if you prefer anonymity.
So I'll just go through a couple of these. Have you found that academic degrees or clinical licenses help to gain legitimacy as a somatica practitioner? I think for some portion of the population, although I don't think it's a huge portion of the population, letters after people's names are very impressive to them. But most people just want somebody who really knows what they're doing. And a lot of times people with letters after their names particularly don't know what they're doing around sex. So that's why we kind of specialize it, and we really help people understand that it's a specialty and that it's very specific, and that the letters of being a certified somatica practitioner are letters after your name that would make it that very much legitimizes it. And we're getting a lot more, because we do so much work to spread the word about somatica out in the world. We're getting a lot more people who recognize it as a brand that has high integrity and that we're really good at what we do. So I think more and more the letters will be less important, and just being able to be certified in this training will be more and more important.
Yeah, I do want to ask you all a question about how has having this career changed the way you see yourself? Someone want to take it?
In terms of like my identity, I've always seen myself as a sexual person, but I haven't been very comfortably out about it. And now that I understand what that is, I'm able to share that within the world and not have it be either a little like to have my sexuality spill on other people, or to have to be more reserved and cautious with it and protecting other people. I see myself and I draw identity as a sexual person, and kind of let the chips fall where they may. And if that's like too intense for someone, or like confrontational, I mentioned, then sometimes those people can become clients, or I can gently like care for them around that. So yeah, I see myself as a safe sexual person.
I don't want to get too much on a soapbox here, as I tend to do, but in this situation, I see that this stand that Somatica has really helped me to articulate that I felt like I felt, but I didn't have articulation for, development for, around being a stand against shame as an identity, as a, creating at the very least a field in my environment where shame is not necessary and not even tolerated. I feel that this might be overstating it, but maybe it doesn't feel like overstating it to me. It feels like it's an aspect of social justice to be. So I see myself as engaging in something that feels very important to me in terms of allowing people to be really who they are, relaxed and fully here on this planet.
Yeah, I mean, it took me a while to actually even sort through it, but I think, yeah, I feel a little bit like a superhero whose power is to be able to talk about like awkward and taboo and difficult topics, like at the dinner table, as if it was just like talking about how is the weather today. And so I really appreciate that. That's really helpful in so many different aspects of my personal life, and helping clients be like, yeah, this is awkward, but let's just talk about it. So yeah, I appreciate that.
So somebody asked, how did the training affect your relationships? Has that evolved as you worked as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, it was hugely impactful in both like partnership relationships, like intimate partnerships, as well as like even with my friends. Again, learning to be able to talk about things was so helpful. So yeah, in my relationships, I think I navigated through how to better like figure out what I want and express and ask for that. I think Demetria was saying that before, like I can ask for things in a much more knowledgeable and grounded way. And then also like learning to deal with when I'm in a partnership where maybe I can't get that thing that I want, and what do I do about that? And so, yeah, I'm so appreciative of how it's allowed me to be more myself in relationship and navigate difficult conversations.
I kind of want to answer that one myself because I feel like it's been so transformative to me. It's completely changed my life. I have a huge history of abandonment trauma, and my abandonment trauma used to run my life. And doing this work all of these years and continuing to have amazing supportive people like all of you to talk to about it and support me, like I feel like I've turned a corner on it where I feel so empowered and not enslaved to my wound, and that and doing this work all of these years has reminded me over and over to keep working on myself around those things, and I'm sure I wouldn't have nearly to this level, so that I just feel the sense of freedom in relationship and so much more love coming in than I've ever had in my life before. So that's changed for me a lot. How many hours of homework are there per month? So there's reading and there's homework and there's practice sessions. I would say it's more like 2 to 5 hours per week, more so maybe 8 to 20 hours per month. And we do send out the reading list right away as soon as you sign up, so you can get started on the reading and maybe like spread it out over more time. And the reading doesn't have to be done exactly on time. So if you're a slower reader, you can just say, okay, I'm going to finish these books over the next year, because there is a good amount of reading and they are really helpful, but you don't have to have read all of them to get through the training.
Someone asked about like taking the training as a couple. We do have couples in the training. It is powerful for some people to do together, some people to prefer to take turns. One person takes the training the first round, the other person takes the training the second round. So it's really a matter of preference that the couple has, but it's for sure super impactful to their relationships.
In terms of the books, we provide the 3 books that we've written and a manual with all the exercises in it as part of the tuition, and the rest of the books you need to purchase yourself. How often are the trainings? If you missed the first one in October, can you still start? I'm working on getting the finances to pay for the course. Yes, we're going to keep having 2 trainings a year from now on. That's our approach. So we will be having another training, and they're about every 6 months or so.
But you cannot hop onto a training in the middle of a training. So if you missed the beginning of a training, you just need to wait for the next one to start.
Can you speak to the experience of participants only seeking personal development rather than career? Yeah. So when we first started this training, we were just doing it for coaches. And then when we, as coaches were going through the training, they kept saying, everything in my life feels better. It's weird. Even my relationship with my kids and my partner and my sex life is so much better. We're like, wow, this really seems to be having people in their personal lives. Maybe we should offer it for personal growth. So I think for people who are doing it for personal growth, they're still in the, in the client practitioner role in the practices, but you're really, everything in Somatica is super vulnerable and interpersonal. You're not in this distant, separate coaching role. So it's really just working your personal growth stuff. And it's amazing to be able to do it with one person after another in the training, because then you get just reflected back to you whatever your patterns are and your growth needs are. And so the transformation is so it's so fast and profound. Having those multiple reflections, I think, makes a huge difference. So people have really appreciated how much it's changed their lives, whether they're doing it just for personal growth or also for professional development.
Yeah. So I wanna, before we finish, because I know a few of you need to jump up right into sessions and see clients. So I wanna check if you have something that you wanna share that we didn't ask about, something that heartfelt or something that you feel the audience will benefit from. So I'll let you each share that.
One of the things that surprised me during COVID is that this could be done online, and that when the training happened online, I immediately jumped in because it's like, oh my God, I'm working online. I gotta figure out a way to work online. I want to learn from that. Something about it has allowed me to open up even more, to bring my sexuality to my work even more than I did before. I was one of the people who had very clearly had my own boundaries that were actually more conservative than somatic boundaries. And what is amazing, the online has, I feel like, taught me so much about the heart of the interactive piece of Somatica, because I've been able to come with my vulnerable self and with my sexuality and eroticism into sessions more than I've ever felt the safety to do that before. And it's changed my work. I did not expect this to be better. I expected it to be okay online. And I'm blown away with how powerful this work is for my clients. Because in my case, they're doing shorter sessions. I do 50-minute sessions rather than 75. So they're doing shorter sessions. So people are seeing me every week. And the regularity of that is helping people to change things that they want to change in their lives. The relationships are going much deeper than I expected. And that's what I'd like to share that wasn't asked.
So I know, Pam, you particularly have a client right after this. Do you want to say goodbye so you can eat something?
Thanks. I know I have 5 clients today, plus this in the middle. So sorry I had to eat my lunch during it, and I need coffee before my next one. But I think one of the things I was sitting with as you were talking, Christina, was just the fact that it evolved like that. The move to online is one of those evolutions, and even the types of clients that I'm most interested in working with, or where, which one of your programs I'm diving into and learning about, and even the relationship with you guys and, becoming certified. And so to just, I don't know, I think if I would have had to try to chart that exact path out at the start, I would have maybe limited what was going to show up and what I was going to discover about myself or the work or this field. And so, maybe just, I don't know, if I could have given advice to my old self, it's just to be open to possibilities as the journey starts, and know that it's going to evolve and shift over time.
So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And we can't wait to see more of you. If you like this video, like us on Facebook, become a subscriber and like us on YouTube.